coming back to Japan and my time here, I'm quite interested in the Zen tradition. I've done a lot of reading on Buddhism. I meditate, I do all that kind of stuff. And I think in the last few years, I found myself getting a lot more centered. I'm centering myself a lot better. And I think that has put a lot of things in better perspective. So this is all a long way of saying, I think, that vitriol that people encounter from antinatalists online, it's a catharsis, in my opinion, as you correctly say, people who hate their parents, for want of a better term. That being said, I mean, it's kind of it's a double-edged sword, you know. You've got these people who are very vitriolic. However, the other side of it is a lot of that vitriol is justified. The problem is they're just shooting it at the wrong people. When you're a kid and you go, like, because I grew up in a very dysfunctional family, you know, domestic violence, alcohol, narcissistic abuse, the whole thing. I went through the whole ringer. When you go through that, as a child, you lose control, and maybe this comes back to individual sovereignty, but you lose control of yourself because you don't have control as a child. You're always constantly in fear. You're always constantly on survival mode. That's great when you're a kid in a bad situation because that's how you survive. But when you become an adult, that strategy no longer works in the real world. It's actually very dysfunctional. And that's where dysfunctional cycles of abuse kick in. But you have to find a way to release that. And I think this whole social media thing, people have found a way to do that. And what antinatalists, I think, have done, because I know this from my own experience, is you're so angry at everybody and everything, but look at this. Here's this philosophy. It's got the word philosophy attached to it. So that makes it valid. It's legitimate. And so I can now retrofit this philosophy on all of my anger. And I can now say, look at me. I found this philosophy, which is true, undeniable. You cannot debate it. You cannot, there's nothing wrong with it. You cannot undermine it. That's quite a moralist. That's, yeah, I don't know what the correct word I'm looking for there is, but that's a very, like I said, dopamine rush kind of position. I've found the linchpin of existence, as it were, you know?
I'm fascinated that you, in describing, you know, your progression with antinatalism, that you mentioned meditation. Something which I've known intellectually to be true, but it doesn't prevent me from falling victim to it, is that righteous indignation feels amazing.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. And then add anonymity into that, and
exactly,
you've got access to millions of strangers. You can, like, I can go onto Twitter now. You know, you can just put in pro-life as a hashtag and just pick the first person that comes up and go and call them an asshole.
Yeah,
it's as easy as that to do now.
I can't come to bed. Somebody is wrong on the internet.
There you go. Yeah, there's that, isn't there? Yeah,
so
exactly.
To sit in silence and just notice the behavior of one's own mind, yeah, it can bring to light some some unpleasant truths about what sort of encounters we seek out and what purpose that serves for us. And you are the the exceptional antinatalist in that, you know, you've come to this realization and have moderated the behavior that antinatalism tempts people to engage in. I certainly appreciate that. Yes, the anonymity of the online experience, it prompts people to behave online in ways that they would not do in face-to-face interactions.
Absolutely, yeah. That to me is the real typical 16-year-old finding their way as a teenager kind of thing. It's just, and if there's people who are 35, 40 kind of in that mindset, okay, I'll just mute you and block you or something. I'm not interested.
Which is a very practical way to go. It's like, I can see you're stuck in a pattern that, you know, is obviously working for you on some level, and we're not going to be having a very useful or progressive discussion. So let's just not have the discussion. That is the adult approach. You know, the juvenile approach is to say, oh, I can see that you and I are compatible in that we could lock horns forever. Let's go. Let's do it. Right.
There you go. I mean, and that can all dovetail with the whole, you know, the whole dysfunctional stuff that comes from child abuse. You know, a lot of, you know, if you want to talk about antinatalists, I'm not saying all antinatalists went through child abuse, but let's just say a lot of them are disaffected. I think that's the generous way of saying it. And that dysfunction requires an opponent at some point, or of some substance. There needs to be someone you can lock horns with. So there is that function, I think, in the online space for antinatalists, which is why you get again, that whole dynamic. Like there's a friend of mine, Topic Thunder. Do you know her?
I do. I know who you're talking about. Yes.
Good. Okay. So she did a video. She had the same experience that you're talking about. She did a video on antinatalism. It was just it was literally from someone who had just stumbled across this idea, had a look at Reddit, had a look at Twitter, decided to do a video, and in doing so, kicked the hornet's nest.
Yep.
And she was just overwhelmed, and she turned off her comments and everything. And so I've actually, we're talking quite a bit in DMs. She's really cool, but she had exactly this experience. She was just shocked beyond words. She could not believe that all she did was say, I found an interesting topic and I don't really understand it that well, but I'll just make a video. And she just got flooded with abuse about how, because she was talking about having a baby. She just had a baby as well, and good. I mean, I didn't see the comments, but she was just saying, I couldn't deal with it. I had to shut everything down. So I think there is an element of the online antinatalist community which literally hunts out people to abuse. You know Count Dankula?
Yes.
He's pretty famous. Okay. So you know who he is. I mean, I think a lot of people do. His wife, Sue, did a couple of videos about, because they're doing IVF. It means that one or more partners you can't conceive naturally. So this is not private. They've gone public about this. So I'm not revealing anything or anything like that. They don't even know who I am, so not like I've got secret information. But Sue, his wife, she posted a couple of videos, and oh my goodness, the antinatalist response was just awful. And I'm just thinking, what are you hoping to achieve by this? She's just saying what must be one of the most emotional, turbulent points of someone's life. I can't have children. And you're just running at her saying, oh, you what are you doing bringing a child into the world? That mentality just, I can't get. I don't get it. I mean, I've seen situations on Twitter where literally just a mother or a father or parents will just say, hey, we just had a baby, and they just get mobbed for some reason. Just like, yep. Well, what are you doing?
Well, as I mentioned, if you just go to Twitter and type #antinatalism, you will see on display just anger and vitriol. And one of the primary points that the antinatalists want to make is that parents are selfish. That right. The decision to have a child is completely egoic. It is a disguised or unacknowledged desire to avoid death. So I'm looking at a cartoon now, and it shows a baby who's in swaddling clothes, and it's starting to speak its first words. And the mother turns to the father and says, he's about to say his first words. And the baby says, your selfish desire for symbolic immortality brought me here to suffer as an ornament to be owned and displayed. Baby's first words.
Right. Like that cartoon you just cited where the kid, says, oh, it's because of your selfish desires, yada, yada, yada. Sure, philosophically, these are interesting points to discuss, and they are, and I can agree on a level that that's correct. But the purpose of the human species is to have children. That's what we do, and I can't. Even when I was in my bad AN stage, antinatalist stage, I've never been able to get around this idea that you having a child is selfish or something, because I think most people have children in their 20s and 30s, basically. And I know for a fact in my 20s, I didn't know anything about anything. And I wanted to have children during that time as well. I was all up for it. And then even in my 30s, when I look back, I didn't know anything. I mean, I'm in my late 40s now, and I still don't know anything. But the thing of telling people in their 20s and 30s, you're selfish for having a child, don't you understand? But antinatalists believe that when they speak like that, they're speaking from a philosophical perspective, whereas all of us were stupid in our 20s, and we had no idea of deeper meaning of life. People just have children. It's not selfish. People don't do a calculus. when it comes to having kids. So I don't think people are operating on the basis of weighing up, am I selfish in doing this? People don't think when they have children and during their 20s and 30s. If you're having a child in your 50s, for example, I would give pause to that, because I would say you've lived long enough to realize that maybe this is something to think about. But nobody does in their 20s. I think this whole selfishness, I get it, philosophically it's defensible, but in reality, it's you're dealing with procreation, which is the most powerful force, I think, within the human biological makeup. That's why we're here. I don't get the selfish thing. And I know I'm going to probably get hate for that.